For years, the internet knew Ruby Franke as the matriarch of a perfect family. Her YouTube channel, 8 Passengers, was a digital scrapbook showcasing a bustling, happy household in Utah. With her husband Kevin and their 6 beautiful children, she curated an image of idyllic family life, grounded in structure, faith, and wholesome values. Millions of subscribers tuned in daily to watch the Franke family navigate life's little moments, from school projects and family dinners to vacations and holiday celebrations. The channel became a blueprint for a certain kind of modern parenting, one that seemed to have all the answers in an increasingly complicated world. It was a brand built on relatability and aspiration, a seemingly safe corner of the internet where family always came first. Behind the carefully edited vlogs and smiling thumbnails, however, a different story was slowly beginning to surface. Viewers, once charmed by the family's dynamic, started noticing unsettling undertones in Ruby's parenting style. The discipline she championed often appeared excessively harsh and controlling, crossing a line that made many uncomfortable. Incidents that were framed as teaching moments came across as cruel. There was the time she refused to bring her 6-year-old daughter her forgotten lunch at school, insisting it was a lesson in personal responsibility. The public debates that followed were fierce, with some defending her methods while a growing chorus of critics voiced serious alarm over the children's emotional and physical well-being. One of the most infamous examples that signaled a problem was the story of her teenage son, who was punished by being forced to sleep on a beanbag for 7 long months. Ruby explained this away as a consequence for a prank, but for many, it was a glaring red flag. The punishment felt disproportionate, a form of prolonged degradation rather than constructive discipline. Her casual narration of these events on camera was perhaps the most chilling part. She presented these extreme measures as normal, even commendable parenting tactics. The perfect family portrait was beginning to crack, revealing a foundation that seemed less about love and more about absolute, unquestioning control over her children. These public controversies were just the tip of the iceberg, small glimpses into a much darker reality that remained hidden from the camera's eye. While online forums debated the ethics of her content, the children were living within a system where love was conditional and punishment was severe. The very platform that brought the Franke family fame and fortune was also, paradoxically, sounding the first faint alarms. Viewers who had once admired Ruby started to feel like unwilling witnesses to something deeply wrong. The question lingered in comment sections and online forums. Was this strict parenting, or was it something far more sinister happening right before their eyes? The channel's gradual decline coincided with Ruby Franke's new and disturbing professional chapter. She stopped posting regularly on 8 Passengers and instead formed a powerful alliance with a controversial therapist named Jodi Hildebrandt. Together, they launched a life coaching platform called Connections Classroom, which promised to help people live in truth and integrity. The teachings, however, were anything but therapeutic. They were built on a foundation of extreme principles, promoting a worldview where personal struggles like anxiety or depression were not illnesses to be treated, but moral failures and addictions to be overcome through shame and rigid self-denial. This marked a significant and dangerous turn for Ruby's public persona. Under Hildebrandt's guidance, Ruby's already strict beliefs warped into a fanatical ideology. The Connections videos were starkly different from the sunny 8 Passengers vlogs. In them, Ruby and Jodi sat in a sterile office delivering cold, judgmental lectures. They labeled children as evil and possessed, and taught that any form of disagreement or imperfection was a sign of corruption that needed to be stamped out. Ruby, once a momfluencer, now presented herself as a severe guru, and Hildebrandt was her mentor in this dark philosophy. This partnership isolated Ruby further from her extended family and even her own husband, creating an echo chamber where their toxic ideas could fester without challenge. The principles of Connections were not just abstract theories, they were actively applied within the Franke home, with devastating consequences. The philosophy dictated that children needed to be broken down to be saved from their own inherent evil. This belief system provided a twisted justification for what was happening behind closed doors. The abuse was reframed as a necessary, even righteous act of parenting. The children were no longer just being disciplined for misbehavior, they were being subjected to a systematic process of purification designed by Hildebrandt and carried out by their own mother. It was a terrifying fusion of New Age therapy and religious extremism. This dark mentorship gave Ruby the framework to rationalize unimaginable cruelty. She was taught to believe that her maternal instincts were wrong and that Hildebrandt's harsh directives were the only path to righteousness. The two women convinced each other that they were saving the children, not harming them. They believed they were fighting a spiritual battle against evil, and the children were the battleground. In their shared delusion, withholding food, forcing painful labor, and isolating the children from the outside world were not acts of abuse, but acts of love. It was a poisonous bond that would ultimately lead to a real-life horror story far worse than any viewer could have imagined. The carefully constructed world of lies came crumbling down on a hot summer day in August 2023. It wasn't a police raid or a whistleblower that exposed the truth, but the desperate act of a child who refused to suffer in silence any longer. Ruby's 12-year-old son, emaciated and wounded, managed to climb out of a window of Jodi Hildebrandt's house in Ivins, Utah. He ran to a neighbor's home, his small body a testament to the horrors he had endured. He was covered in open wounds and had remnants of duct tape wrapped around his ankles. He didn't ask for toys or comfort. His plea was far more primal and urgent. He simply begged for food and water. The neighbor who opened the door was met with a truly shocking sight. The boy was gaunt, his eyes filled with a fear that no child should ever know. His request was not just for himself, he was terrified for his sister, who he said was still inside the house. The neighbor immediately called 911, and in that moment, the silent emergency that had been unfolding for months finally had a voice. The authorities arrived to find a scene that was even worse than they could have anticipated. The boy's condition was critical, a clear case of severe malnourishment and physical abuse. His escape was a desperate, courageous bid for his life and the life of his younger sister. Acting on the boy's plea, law enforcement entered Hildebrandt's home and began a search. They soon found Ruby's 10-year-old daughter hidden away, terrified and in a similar state of malnutrition. The children were immediately taken into protective custody, and the investigation swiftly led to the arrest of both Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt. The news sent shockwaves through the community and across the internet. The momfluencer who had built an empire on parenting advice was now in handcuffs, accused of torturing her own children. The facade had not just cracked, it had been completely shattered by the bravery of one little boy. For the public, the details that emerged were stomach-churning. The children had allegedly been denied food, water, and beds. They were forced to perform grueling physical labor in the blistering summer heat and were bound with ropes. The abuse was described as being like a concentration camp, a chilling phrase to describe what happened in a quiet, suburban home. The son's desperate escape had pulled back the curtain on an unthinkable reality, revealing that the smiling family from YouTube was a fiction. The truth was a story of profound betrayal, isolation, and the kind of cruelty that defies all comprehension. The fallout from Ruby Franke's arrest was immediate and immense. Her eldest daughter Sherry, who had been estranged from the family for over a year after openly questioning Hildebrandt's influence, posted a single powerful word on her Instagram story: finally. Her relief was palpable, confirming that family members had been aware of the toxicity for some time but were powerless to intervene. Ruby's own sisters released a joint statement expressing their horror and explaining that they had kept quiet for the children's sake, hoping to protect them. The family that once appeared so unified on screen was now publicly fractured, its members grappling with the trauma and betrayal in the harsh glare of the international spotlight. The legal consequences were swift. In February 2024, a tearful Ruby Franke pleaded guilty to 4 counts of aggravated child abuse. In her statement to the court, she claimed she had been manipulated by Jodi Hildebrandt, saying she was led to believe that dark was light and right was wrong. She accepted full responsibility for her actions, apologizing directly to her children, whom she admitted she had horribly failed. Both she and Hildebrandt were sentenced to serve up to 30 years in prison. The verdict brought a sense of justice, but it did little to heal the deep wounds inflicted on the Franke children or answer the lingering questions from a horrified public. The Ruby Franke case has become a chilling cautionary tale for the digital age, forcing a difficult conversation about the nature of online personas and the illusion of perfection. For years, millions of people invited Ruby into their homes through their screens, trusting the image she so carefully crafted. Her downfall exposed the dangerous disconnect that can exist between a curated online life and a dark, hidden reality. It serves as a stark reminder that what we see on social media is never the full story. The pressure to perform for an audience can warp priorities and, in this extreme case, provide cover for unimaginable abuse. In the end, this story is not just about one failed influencer, it's about the vulnerability of children, the power of manipulation, and the trust we place in the images we consume. It asks us to be more critical, more aware, and perhaps less enchanted by the promise of a perfect life sold to us online. The Franke children are now on a long road to healing, away from the cameras that documented their early years and the mother who betrayed them. Their story is a heartbreaking legacy, a permanent stain on the world of family influencing, and a powerful warning about the devils that can hide in plain sight.